Kings and Queens? Welcome back to another episode of Faith Helps Podcast, and I am your host, Diamond. It's Dr. Diamond Alexis Booth. It feels so good to finally be able to say that. Anyway, today I want to tackle a really important, and I often feel as though this is a misunderstood concept or topic, and that is this idea that if you are complaining about something, then that means you're ungrateful. Or, in other words, this idea that just because you are venting, or there are things that you're wanting more for yourself, for your situation, or for your life, then you can't also still be grateful. And I want to break that down. So in essence, if you've ever been someone who's been told that you should just be happy with what you have, or if you've ever been the recipient of someone telling you that, oh, you shouldn't complain because that means you're ungrateful, or if you're trying to vent about a situation and the person you're venting to or expressing yourself to tells you that, oh, you're being ungrateful, this episode is for you. And it is also for the person on the flip side of that, who, if you have been guilty of being the one to say, oh, you're complaining so you're ungrateful, let's go ahead and just first break down what that means. And I actually took notes because I had some specific points that I wanted to make. And I know sometimes I get on here and I start rambling and I go off on tangents. And so I wanted to be able to kind of stay a little bit more focused and make sure that the things that I've been reflecting on, I actually deliver, so that this is a podcast that you're actually growing from, and also that you're being challenged to think about things in different and new ways. First things first, I feel like there's a misconception of what gratitude is. Gratitude is a tool for being grateful. It's a tool for grounding ourselves in the present moment, in our present situation, and appreciating the highlights of whatever that person, thing, circumstance, situation is. Gratitude is your acknowledgement and your awareness of the things that are benefiting you, the advantages you have, the blessings that you have. It is being aware of the positives, in essence. It's about the acknowledgement that good is existing even in a situation that doesn't maybe feel good. And I think sometimes we are taught that if we don't feel good about a situation, then that means we're ungrateful. That is not true. Just because you don't feel good about a situation, it doesn't mean that there aren't things that you are so grateful for. So, another way of kind of saying this, I feel like somewhere along the way, people began equating gratitude with complacency, and those are two very different things. So complacency is, I'm grateful for where I am, and I'm staying there, and I'm sitting there, and I'm not going to change anything about it. I'm settling. When you are in a mindset of growth and development and improvement, something that all of us have the capacity for, you're naturally going to want more. You're naturally going to want to expand. You're naturally going to want to improve and get better. That's not a bad thing. And it also doesn't mean that you are no longer paying attention to or aware of all of the positive things. You can hold space for both. It's not always this either or situation. It is a both. I am grateful for this job, and there are things that I don't like about it. I am grateful for my health in these areas, and there are some areas of my health that I'm really concerned about and unhappy about, and I'm hurting or frustrated with. Both of those are true. One does not cancel out the other. And just another point about complacency is when we tell someone, oh, you should just be happy with what you have, we're basically in essence telling them to settle for something. And when was the last time that my God, our God, your God, told you to settle for something. If we have a God who creates and does exceedingly abundantly, y'all quote that scripture so much, but then you don't live by it or really believe in it. If we are truly believing in that, then naturally our actions are going to follow suit, and we're going to do things to move towards progression and improvement. And yet we got lost around somewhere around the road and saying that, oh, that means you're ungrateful. And what actually happens is we're discrediting people's feelings, and we're discrediting their emotions. We're discrediting and invalidating their situation and the circumstance that they're in. Consider this example. Would you let's take a plant, right? If a plant needed sunlight, but it had soil and it had water, would you tell that plant that it's ungrateful just because it wants sunlight? Yes, it has all the nutrients and benefits from the water and the soil, but it needs that sunlight. And yes, a plant can still grow and maintain a status of life without sunlight, but the quality is not nearly as close to how much it would thrive and flourish if it had all three of those ingredients. And that's basically what we are telling people, is that you should be grateful for the soil and the water. Forget about the sunlight. And that's a very dangerous path to go down, and that's a very dangerous message to send, because then we end up on the flip side of that complaining about a person not doing more, and we complain about a person being lazy or being stagnant. And it's basically like there's no room for people to just be human, to still want and desire more or want to grow and expand their life without being told, oh, you different, or oh, you're changing, or oh, you're ungrateful. And that's not the case. As I just gave in that example, you would not tell a plant that they are ungrateful. A plant is a living and growing thing. What are you? Please, someone. What are you? You are a living and growing thing. You're constantly developing. Your mindset is constantly changing depending on what experiences you have, and depending on what shifts happen in your life, and depending on what goals and passions get ignited in you. And so those deserve to be nurtured. Those deserve attention. And it's not a sign of you being ungrateful because you want more. I feel like a lot of times people hear this, and I'll use my own experience in life as an example. I was expressing to someone some of my challenges and frustrations with my current circumstance, my current apartment. And they were like, you should just be grateful that you have an apartment. There are some people who don't have an apartment. No, duh. I love you. And this is somebody I had this conversation with. So if you look in, yes, I told you no, duh. But I told this person, yes, I know there are people who are homeless. I know there are people who do not have housing. I know that there are people living in horrible housing situations and wishing that they had an apartment. And I am grateful that I have shelter. I'm so grateful and thankful. Like, I thank God every day that I do have my own apartment. Something that I was praying for. And I also am not going to stay stagnant here. I'm not going to settle for just this, because there is a desire and an awareness that there is more. And so there's naturally going to be that desire for more. And I'm not just going to desire it, hope and wish and pray for it. I'm going to put in that work and make it happen. I'm going to do what I need to do to bring about the results that I'm praying, hoping, wishing, and desiring for. That does not mean that I'm ungrateful for what I have. I think what would actually be better for certain people is if you, instead of telling somebody that, oh, you're being ungrateful, how about you just say, hey, babe, hey, love, hey, sweetheart, hey, friend, whatever. I hear that you're frustrated about that situation. today I don't have the capacity to hold some of the frustration that you're coming to me with. But I am here if you just want some motivation and some encouragement to uplift you and think about the positives, if you have the capacity for that and if you're in a space to do that right now. Because some people are not in a space. My friend happened to catch me when I did not have the capacity and was not in a space to just think about all the positives, because what was burning in me is this hunger for, I need to start doing the things that I need to do to make the results that I want to see actually come into fruition. And there's a place and time for everything. And so that's what we should actually be telling our friends when we don't want to hear them quote unquote complaining, instead of telling them that they're being ungrateful. Just say that you don't have the capacity right now to hear or hold space for their venting, their emotional expression, their frustration that you're trying to get out. Because that helps everybody. You protect your peace, you protect your sanity, you also protected their feelings, and you also allow them, you protect them from being invalidated, which would just perpetuate the stress and the frustration that they're already feeling. So I want to challenge us to start making that shift. Instead of automatically jumping to, oh, you're just being ungrateful and dismissing what someone is saying, how about we slow down and assess, do I have the capacity? Oh, I do have the capacity. Let me listen to them. And then how about this? Let me take it a step further. I heard what they're frustrated about. I heard the areas that they are not happy about. Let me, instead of jumping straight to pointing out all the positives, let me help partner with them in creating a plan that will allow them and best set them up for getting from point A to point B, whatever their point B is, whatever that goal is. If it is that they're wanting out of their job, but they're also grateful for their job, then help structure a plan with them so that they can make steps towards the type of job that is going to fulfill that passion or that burning desire that they're feeling. That is what a healthy friendship does. That is what is actually more effective than just dismissing someone and casually saying be more grateful. And I feel like just the other thing to kind of like capture this and make sure that this is a little bit more actionable is just a few steps that I want to leave you guys with. Number one, part of being grateful is like mindfulness, basically, because yes, there are some times where we get so caught up in the negatives and we completely like dive straight into like this almost depressed spiral, because we do need gratitude. We're not saying throw gratitude away. I am not telling you to stop being grateful. I'm not telling you to dismiss the positives or anything like that, because we need gratitude in order to keep us out of those depressed states, and from allowing our frustration to turn into a reaction that is going to be problematic. So number one, first way to make this actionable is, yes, practicing mindfulness about your circumstances and your situation, whatever it is that you're encountering. Think about not just the things that you want to improve, but also the things that you are grateful for and how they're benefiting you. The way that you take this step one another step further and don't just create this list of positives and negatives, because that's not what we're doing. You then ask yourself, for each of those positives that you wrote down, how can those positives, or how can they set you up on a better path to accomplish the goals that you want based off of what you wrote down on your not so great or negatives side, those things that you are wanting for or wish were different. So for example, let's use the idea of a job. If the thing that you are grateful for within your job is that you have flexibility in your schedule, but the thing that you want is more autonomy and the workload that you're carrying, how can the flexibility in your schedule fuel this goal of having more autonomy? Well, if you have flexibility in your schedule, that means you can set aside blocks of time to start working on other business ventures, ideas, or passions that you want for yourself that fuel feel autonomy, you can start thinking about how you can use that flexibility in your schedule to create more space for you to propose ideas that work towards a more autonomous atmosphere in that workspace. Or maybe you're just altogether like, I don't actually want to stay here. I want to move to a different place. Then you continue on that list and identify how can you make those pros or those positives fuel the goal. That is what it actually means to hold space for being grateful, but also still holding space for wanting more for yourself, wanting improvement, and wanting growth. Number 2, and it actually should be number 1, is pray. Take time to consult with God, not just a one-way street, but also be open to what God is downloading to you. Because sometimes we're asking God for an answer, and God then sent the answer 12 times, and we keep ignoring it because it doesn't look the way that we wanted it to or the way we thought it would. Sometimes we're constantly praying for God to give us a new career, but we won't leave the career we're in, and that's what he told us to do, because we're afraid that if we leave what we're in, then we don't know what's next. Sometimes you have to step out on faith and trust that communication that you have with God and that relationship that you have with him, that as you step out, then he'll give you the next step. And then once you do that step, then he'll give you the next step. And then once you do that step, he'll give you, and so on and so on and so on. Next thing you know, you are living in your prayers. You are living in your beliefs and your faith. And lastly, write it down. Don't just want more for yourself. Don't just dream about it and daydream about it. Write it down. You guys see me living my life. If you follow me on Instagram or any social medias, you see that I don't stop living my life outside of my job or outside of earning an income. I'm also very intentional about fueling my passions. Here we are right now. This is a living example. If you're listening on Spotify, you probably don't know what I'm talking about, but if you have watched on YouTube, I am in my office and I'm still fueling my passions. If you follow me on TikTok, you see that I am still about that fitness and still about motivating other people to work out. No, I didn't pursue a fitness business and put that on hold, but I'm still fueling that passion and that interest in other ways. So there's always room to incorporate more of your passion if you're looking for it and if you're intentional about setting aside that time. Instead of setting aside time to scroll or get drunk and go out to the party and the clubs and binge watch TV shows, set aside time to do the things that you are passionate about, that every single day you're daydreaming about and you're fantasizing about, but haven't taken one step towards it. That is how you hold space for gratitude and still continuing to improve. That is what I wanted you guys to get today. I hope that this message not just transforms how you are thinking about gratitude and gratefulness and growth and improvement, but I hope it also inspires you to do, like to take action. Don't just listen to this and then move on and say, oh, that was a good episode. Do things with what you're hearing. Otherwise, I'm wasting my time. Do things with what you're hearing. Whether it's this podcast or another podcast, if you are taking in spiritual and intellectual and emotional and psychological nutrients from whatever it is that you are viewing and listening, do something with it. Don't just keep watching it and talking about it. Get up and do something with it. Time is so precious. Stop wasting it. Stop wasting it. Y'all stress me out. Y'all stress me out. But at the end of the day, I just hope that this blesses you. And if it didn't bless you, send it to somebody else. Maybe it'll bless them. And I love you regardless. And also, please love on yourself this weekend, this week. Just do something that fills your cup up, fills up your passions, and helps you live a more fulfilled life that is in alignment with who God called you to be, who you are trying and working towards being, and all that you can be. And if nothing else, baby girl, baby boy, remember, faith helps.